The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good, where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, Robert Winfree. Yay!
Yay! You know what, everybody? We get a fair bit of feedback. We'll phrase it feedback. About some of our shows, and we are frequently accused of being negative here. I can't imagine why, but that is an observation about this show that's been levied at us from time to time. So I would like you all to know that a handful of... No, Mark.
Oh, sorry.
You do not speak for me.
No, I'm sorry. I'll be good.
I would like you all to know, for the handful of you that are going to watch this episode, this is one of the ones where we're not going to be overly negative. We're still going to be critical, but spoiler alert, we all kind of liked the movie. So that's where we are on this one. And I hope you all, you know what, to all of you have been, again, I hope you enjoy getting what you claim to want, because frequently it's not actually what you want. Anyway.
Because Robert's going to give it to you. Hey, you know what's funny? I recently cut the last of the 2022 TikToks that I fell behind on because I was social. And one of the ones was our 3-hour talk on the Northman that broke the network when we were American Whammy for all of 20 minutes. But on that podcast, and I cut this segment for TikTok because it cracks me up still, especially because of the two gentlemen down here that are on the show, which we'll address momentarily. Like, for those of you who want to, we were talking about the rhythm of our conversation when it's just the two of us versus when we have guests, and Robert goes, for those of you who want to be on the show, we don't want you. And I die every time I hear you say that. And then you're like, no, just kidding. And then you see me going, but
for the record, that was a joke. I'm always happy to have guests on the show.
And what guest we have, Robert, if you wouldn't mind?
Well, tonight we have two guests. Double the pleasure, double the fun. Or, you know what? We just
for fuck's sake, I'm going to quit the show if we put this bullshit up on the screen.
There's a easy homeboy. There's a rule. He can do that. We don't ever acknowledge it. Okay? So just like I
put it up. Don't do it.
Smile and wave.
Okay, Pat.
You've now heard from both of them, but here joining us first of all because he likes horror movies, and we like having him here. But Dorian Price is back with us. Dorian, welcome back.
Hi.
All right, Dorian.
Also joining us because he likes Dracula content, and has been a little bit more. You've been a little bit off the sauce these days, Pat. Is that? But Pat Mullin is back on Damn You Hollywood. Pat, always a pleasure.
Yeah, trying not to put the nail in the coffin tonight.
Oh my God! You yell at him, and then you
look at the commenter, and you start with that.
You know that him and the commenter are.
Honestly, I didn't have a plan. I'm in the middle of moving and stuff, so I ripped a bunch of shit out of the walls today, and it just happened to be a nail in front of me. So
you know what's funny? Pat actually big timed himself into the show and big timed the show into existence because originally Haunted Mansion was slated for this weekend, but then when the Marvels got bumped to November, Haunted Mansion got bumped into that spot.
We're all hoping the Marvels gets bumped further than that, but
Yeah,
Same for the Haunted Mansion.
Right into the Atlantic Ocean. So that left Gran Turismo and the last Voyage of Demeter open, and then Pat and I originally was just going to do Gran Turismo, and Pat was like, "No, you're not. You're doing the last Voyage of Demeter, and I'm going to be on there." And I'm like, "Easy, big time." So, and then they moved fucking Gran Turismo to the 25th. So here we are, Pat's show, the last Voyage of Demeter. Before we get into the plot synopsis and all of that, because with 4 people, we really got to hit the ground running. For TikTok purposes, this is the part of the show where I go, "What's your favorite?" Whatever the fuck it is we're talking about. And I do like this. But I kind of want to break it up and completely steal from a different podcast that is now defunct. The Casual Heroes, ladies and gentlemen. They used to do a list, and I used to enjoy that. And I thought, rather than ask you about your favorite Draculas, I thought I would pull from Collider, which was October 10th of 2022. Best Dracula movies ranked from funny flop to unsettling classic. And I thought it'd be fun to kind of go over these one by one. So number 13 is The Flash. No. Number 13.
I'm begging you, Mark.
Up on its own, it didn't need Dracula.
I'm begging you, Mark. Get ad block.
All right. The number 13, coming in at lucky number 13, is the parody, the Mel Brooks parody, Dracula Dead and Loving It from 1995. I'll go to you first, Dorian. Have you seen this one? If so, what'd you think?
I saw this in theaters. I was 4 years old.
Nice.
Because I was raised by crazy people. But that's not what we're here to talk about. That's a whole nother movie. But yeah, no, great film. I mean, obviously not as good as Young Frankenstein. But you could tell everybody on the film was having fun, and it's one that I go back to at least once a year, especially now that it's free to watch on YouTube. Plug.
Can we agree though? This is on the downward slope of Mel Brooks's.
Yeah.
I mean, like he hits the zenith with Spaceballs, and then the follow up to that was Robin Hood Men in Tights, and it's funny. There's still stuff I quote from that movie, and make fun of and laugh at, but it's not as good as Spaceballs or anything he'd done before that. And this isn't as good. It's still funny at times, but this isn't as good to me as Men in Tights or Spaceballs. The other thing about it was
this one is more than a little bit saved by Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah,
and
sure.
This one also just get shit on because it's not Young Frankenstein like Dorian.
Yeah,
because it's Mel Brooks doing horror. Young Frankenstein is a genius comedy, still in my all-time top 10. I think most people's all-time top 10. But because it's not Young Frankenstein, it gets shit on, and it's pretty unfair because it's a lot of fun. Particularly Peter McNichol makes this for me.
Yes.
So.
Yes,
Peter
Renfield
McNichol
is so
also saves that film, and I think that the issue was that with Young Frankenstein, he did go serious, and there are moments that if you just turned off the sound and you didn't know the movie and you showed it to someone, they might think it's a serious film in black and white. With this one, you can tell that they were leaning into that 90s extreme comedy thing, Yeah,
Robert and I have talked about we've lamented the death of subtle satire and parody, because there used to be a day where you didn't have to beat people over the head with a frying pan to let them know that there was a joke here. And
then give them an enema.
Then by the time we get to this era of filmmaking, it's just assumed your audience is a bunch of toaster ovens. Just the one thing I wanted to mention before we move on is the specific movie this one's parodying is Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I'm sure it's going to be on this list somewhere. So we'll talk about it a little bit more at length. But I thought,
the baboon hair off.
Yeah, I was going to say there were some definite cribs from that movie specific that to this day still make me laugh when I see Dead and Loving It. All right,
coming in of the night.
Coming in at number 12.
that was love at first bite.
To be or not to be. All right, coming in at number 12, Count Dracula, 1970. I'll go to you first, Pat.
This should be higher, for the record.
Okay. Why?
Well, for one, Frank Langella's Dracula is criminally underappreciated.
This isn't that one.
Oh, this isn't. Oh no, this is one of the lead ones, isn't it?
Yeah.
This was Hammer trying to get closer to the actual source material.
My mistake. Carry on.
Yeah, this isn't part of the Hammer Dracula series, so I want to preface with that.
Yeah.
It is Lee playing Dracula in a Hammer production, but it's not a Hammer Dracula series film. This is them, like was mentioned, trying to be a little more faithful to the novel, in terms of Dracula's appearance, where Lee was older, he had a mustache, and again, I'll preface, Christopher Lee is my all-time Dracula. I think for some people, he's the definitive Dracula. Maybe not everybody, but he's my guy. He's who I was exposed to more than anyone. But this movie, if you've seen it, they attempt to be really good, and then about, I'd say, a third, maybe halfway through the movie, it kind of just falls apart a little bit. It gets meandering direction, but it's it'll probably one of Lee's best performances as Dracula, because he does get to be more verbal and act, and it's fun for that purpose.
When you did the Everyone Loves a Bad Guy, which is going to be airing in a week or so on Christopher Lee, how much of his Dracula did you cover, Robert?
A fair bit. Pat was on that one with me.
Yep.
We talked a lot about that. We talked a fair bit about his James Bond appearance. We talked about one of my favorite roles of his in a movie that is sadly at this point memed into oblivion by the terrible remake, but his performance as Lord Summerisle in the original Wicker Man is very good.
And I'm assuming when you did the Dracula Everyone Loves a Bad Guy, you also went back and covered this?
Among others, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, moving on. Lucky number 11, Son of Dracula, 1943.
Oh, Christ, the cracker.
Okay, Dorian, run with it, man. What are you trying to tell us?
It was 2 Halloweens ago. We got snowed in at work. There was really nothing to do, but we still had Wi-Fi, and Peacock had the full catalog of all the Universal Classic monster movies. So one night I said, you know what, we're just going to drag this out. We're going to start, with Bela Lugosi's 1931. We're just going to go through. And to me, the reason that I say Christ on a Cracker with this one is obviously the 31 one is great. Dracula's daughter, also fantastic from just a different point of view, a monster not wanting to be a monster, and the fight, the inner fight here. This was, we got the money for a third one, and I mean, Lon Chaney Jr. is good. We like him, right? Why the hell not? And I'm sorry, it's also the first appearance of one of the things I hate most out of Dracula is the Alucard.
Alucard, yep.
Where it's like, dude, I could be 5 years old and I would have figured that out.
It's not as clever as they think.
It might be on this list. I don't want to get ahead of the game, but I showed my oldest godchild, who is going to be actually 13 next month. So this is about 4 years ago. I showed him Batman versus Dracula, and the guy introduces himself as Alucard. And obviously, in watching that movie, he's Dracula. My godson looks at me and goes, did he just say his damn name backwards and everyone's buying it? I'm like, okay, you know what? If he can figure it out, y'all dumb.
Dracula, the series, the Canadian series they produced, he was a businessman named Alexander Lucard. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah. Oh, God.
A little ways back, Dorian, I showed my son Batman versus Dracula. We had a good time watching. That's actually not a bad cartoon.
Oh, no, it's a great cartoon. I want to be very clear. I love that one. I watch it all the time. It's just the Alucard thing that just...
Okay. Moving on to number 10 as the countdown goes on. Dracula AD 1972.
Yeesh.
Okay, Pat, take it away. Just if you're going to have that visceral reaction, I'm saying this to all three of you, just go. Like, don't wait for me to tell you to give you the.
I mean, so this is the next to last, technically, in that series of Hammer Horror that we talked about, where they decided to stop using the Gothic ancient Victorian settings and go into the present day, which at the time was London. 1972, where it was originally supposed to be titled Dracula is Alive and Well and Swinging in London in 1972.
Nice.
They went with Dracula AD 1972.
Like where all over Christopher Lee's face. It's just the entire title.
It's trying to capture British mod hip.
I was gonna say, like, was Dracula? Do I make you horny, baby? Not already taken? What the hell?
Well, it gets worse in the next one, actually.
Oh my God.
In terms of that.
If memory serves, the next one is the one where Lee only shows up for like 5 minutes at the finale. Or is that this one?
Slightly more than that, but yeah, the follow-up is Satanic Rites of Dracula.
Yeah, that's the one. That's like,
is this one the one where he's putting together his 4 horsemen, or is that Satanic Rites?
That's Satanic Rites.
Yeah.
Okay, I always get these two mixed up.
Where that one is even more into the British film at the time, because you have spy movie stuff involved in it too, trying to capitalize on James Bond. Whereas this is just swinging London.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and it's pretty bad. Other than Christopher Neame in one of his early roles, playing a disciple of Dracula who gets resurrected in the Psalter, It's awful. Peter Cushing, of course, because nobody else can ever look like a Van Helsing, plays his own ancestor in this after playing Professor Abraham. He's now in the modern day as Van Helsing. Yeah.
So a staple of the casual heroes list was arguing about placement. Too high or too low?
Too high.
Too high.
Rob, I might honestly put this below Son of Dracula.
Okay.
I'll put this below Love at First Bite.
And Dead and Loving It.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one should have been dead last, is what I'm hearing.
It's
Shouldn't even be on the
pretty
list.
Hey!
Hey! Hey, Opa! Love at First Bite.
Okay, I saw, really
1979.
quickly, I saw this on TV, and it's actually, I own it now, and I'm actually probably going to watch it tonight. But my childhood moment, I remember seeing this on TV, and still to this day, if people are being too loud, I will literally walk to where everyone can hear me and go, "Children of the night, shut up!"
Okay, stealing that.
I want to, whereas I like to dance to I Love the Nightlife with a cape.
Also,
Does
you know,
someone-
again,
does someone actually do that? Because I might have to stop the podcast and go watch this.
Have you never seen this?
Mark.
I haven't.
This is your movie.
First
Yes!
of all, it's the man more known for being tan than anyone ever, George Hamilton playing Dracula.
Yeah, I'm just
the
not
palest
noticing that.
motherfucker on the planet, or in fiction, probably. Short of the dude from Powder, maybe. But no, yeah, if you haven't seen this, do a double feature. Grab your wife, grab the kids. Do Love at First Bite. I know it's not Dracula, but then watch Zorro the Gay Blade.
Oh,
Done.
George
I know.
Hamilton.
Look, one of my girlfriends is like big into movies and is always like, wanting to watch stuff with me. So double feature, Love at First Bite, and Zorro the Gay Blade, because I've seen neither one. Perfect.
Yeah, make it happen.
And I know, and Pat's nodding vociferously. He's just like, "How have I even been friends with you all these years and you haven't seen
I can't
Zorro
believe
the
you've
Gay
never
Blade?"
seen this. Zorro the Gay Blade gets past a lot of people because it doesn't get played a lot on the movie
Sure.
channels. As a Zorro fanatic, I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is shocking to me between like everything. And from now on, I'm just going to refer to you as Rosenberg.
Okay, moving on. 1958 Horror of Dracula.
Too low.
Too low.
Absolutely too low. Especially this is Christopher Lee's first outing
Yeah.
as Dracula, where he had previously played the Frankenstein monster and the Mummy, and he finally turned the hammer and went, "If you try to put 1 more pound of makeup on my face, I'm going to kill somebody." And they went, "What if you killed people, but were sexy while you did it?"
Ooh, I like it.
Which is why he never played a Wolfman.
No,
Yeah.
I think he would have snapped someone's neck. Probably he would have throttled Peter Cushing.
Yeah. No, this is
No,
way
no,
too low. To me,
Peter
this
Cushing
is
would
top
have
of the
helped
heap.
him. Yeah, no, this is way too. This is like top 3.
I would say,
Really?
yeah. If,
Yeah.
like at
Interesting.
lowest 4.
Okay, well, be curious to see then like what you'd swap this out with when we finally get to the top 5.
I'm gonna go with a lot that are ranked immediately above it.
Yeah. I mean, this is my number 1. So
Okay. Well, here we go with Dracula, 1979. That is too pretty of a Dracula, by the way. I don't
No,
like it.
that's hang on.
he's a sexy Dracula.
Yeah, that's
Ooh.
young Frank Langella
Uh-huh.
You know, Nixon.
and from Frost Nixon.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, this is him much younger.
Mm-hmm.
This is not better than Horror of Dracula,
Oh God, no.
but I actually have a soft spot for this one because one, I like Langella as a general rule. I like his take on Dracula. Most of the stuff around him in this movie is weak.
I think Laurence Olivier saves this movie. I feel like him.
You're not wrong.
He's
You're
like
not wrong.
dragging it to the finish line, going, "It will be a liked film." And again, one other thing. This is very behind the scenes. Not a lot of people know this. John Williams did the score for this film.
Yeah.
Oh,
John
interesting.
Williams has never failed, in my opinion, in his life. He's a composing god. This score is probably one of his weakest.
Yeah.
It almost feels like he got dragged in last minute. And again, just my opinion, feels like he got dragged in last minute and went, I don't know, make it spooky.
Handed him like a Casio keyboard, like, "Play, monkey." I don't know.
Yes.
But this
Right.
literally, this movie is known for being sexy Dracula.
Okay.
That
Well,
would
that
be appealing,
immediately
because-
puts it on my must-watch list because I must-watch Sexy Dracula. All right. Moving
prepared.
on.
Again, not better than Horror, but
Okay, this one needs to be at least number 3. I'm
All
sorry.
right. Hang on. No, hang on. Let me, people, again, you people on video format, this is still a podcast. For you audio
yeah,
listeners who we
everybody's
still
listening
love,
to this, not watching.
Oh, fuck off. Nosferatu, a symphony. Speaking of John Williams, of horror, 1922. Now, gentlemen.
All right. So
This is
Max Terror here, aka Max Shrek. Listen, you have to appreciate this because it is the original. It's set the standard for a lot of this. In many ways, it is more faithful to the novel than many of the others. It's Nosferatu because they couldn't secure the rights from the Bram Stoker estate to the rights to Dracula, but they do copy a lot of the things from the novel that have been lost to time in a lot of respects, where Count Orlok, in this instance, is your typical vampire. Instead of Dracula, he can be out in the sun, things of that nature.
Which was true of Dracula in the novel.
Right.
It killed his
And again-
underlings. It would not kill him.
No,
Yeah,
it was like the first rays of the sun is what would kill him, but he could, kind of stick to the shadows and not explode.
So if he went out during lunch hour, he was fine. Got it.
Right. Well, I mean, and this one, that it is more important as a milestone because it is one of the first keystones of horror in general.
Yeah.
Had this movie not been made, horror as we know it today would not be anything like
this. This and the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari are like
Absolutely.
the pillars
Absolutely.
of horror cinema, period.
Yeah.
I look at this like I look at Luthez, to use a
Okay.
wrestling analogy. Check it off your bingo cards, everybody.
Everyone take a drink.
Luthez in the 40s and 50s, was wrestling and it was great. Luthez today would not draw a dime.
Right. I get
Because
that.
there have been advancements and things that Lou couldn't do. And I'm not saying that to crap poo-poo on Lou, because I love Lou and I respect Lou, but here it is. It's
No,
just what it
Lou's
is.
not going to bust out a Canadian destroyer.
Luthez had to walk so that people today could Canadian destroy.
That's a good way of putting that. All right.
And kick
Moving
out of
on.
one.
All right, here we go. Top 5 on the dime, baby.
Okay.
Dracula, Prince of Darkness.
No.
Not better than horror. Not better
No,
than horror
and-
Dracula.
Again, to go behind the scenes on this is Dracula Prince of Darkness, which is the first sequel in Hammer series to Horror of Dracula. Christopher Lee was so dissatisfied with this script that he deliberately had the majority of his lines cut so he wouldn't have to speak. That's what he thought of this film. Basically,
Wow.
a bunch of villagers need a place to crash for the night, and they find Castle Dracula and his henchman Clove, and they get picked off. And it says a lot that people love his mute performance and how animalistic he was. But this is a silent protest.
Yeah, it really is.
And again, it's even worse. I mean, you can read it, like, for those of you watching video, it says here, Andrew Keir's father Sandor is a worthy successor to Peter Cushing's Dracula's nemesis. No, he tries, but again, you've got to have Cushing and Lee just, smacking at each other for an hour and a half if you want to make this work.
All right. Number 4 is Nosferatu, Phantom der 1979.
This one's good. I think it should be a little lower, but this one is Werner Herzog, again, doing the, every single frame of painting made exactly how I want to make it. There are shots in that it's like, I get it. Yep, it's been established. Yep, that's a building. It's a very pretty building, Werner.
Yeah, Herzog is very visual, and again, I'm a huge Werner Herzog fan in terms of what he can do from an art standpoint.
Herzog is one of those rare directors who is incapable of making anything uninteresting. Even his utter failures of films are spectacular in their own right.
Yeah, and to this one specifically, to Nosferatu, there's very much that I'm teetering on the line, and he doesn't do a Gus Van Sant. He doesn't just do a shot-for-shot remake. He does enough where he's paying homage to the original work, but he is updating it. He is modernizing it. He is doing some things differently that rope you into the story in a different way. It's an okay film. I wouldn't put it this high. I wouldn't put it above the original specifically.
This is more like 7 to 5 for me in that range. It's still good, but it's a little too high.
All right, here we go. With the last 3 here, top 3. The bronze
I guarantee
medal,
you that's on here just for the ending, but we'll go ahead and figure
bronze
that out.
medal goes to Dracula Has Risen from the grave, 1968. Like altered beast, rise from your grave.
This is the second sequel in that series, the third in the movie series.
Okay.
Where Dracula rises from the grave, as the name implies. Honestly, it's really a case of a young atheist who is involved with this barmaid that Dracula's fascinated with, and the Monsignor has to convince him to pray and, to combat Dracula. It's here for the ending, because the ending is essentially Dracula getting struck by lightning while being impaled by a large metal cross.
I want to take this opportunity to say that this was the second list that I found. The very first list in the number 10 spot. And I want to shout out to Jason Teasley for our Black History collection of films that we did a year ago.
With Blackula?
Blackula was number 10. And I was like, I have covered it to death. I could do another whole hour on Blackula. And I did a separate show on, I think it was Magazines and Monsters, that podcast, where we actually talked about Blackula and the sequel. And I was like, I kind of want to do this list instead. But yes, honorable mention has to go to Blackula. I'll take this opportunity to say that now.
I like that it made Dracula a racist.
Well,
because how do you make him more evil? Make him a racist.
Nothing like putting racial tensions in your horror movie. Here we go. I don't understand why this one is number 2.
It should not be this high.
Yes. Oh, really? Bram Stoker's Dracula, 1992. I was going to go with number 1 for this one.
I'm just glad it's on the list. This is as Pat was saying, that Christopher Lee is his Dracula. Gary Oldman will always be mine.
Okay.
I do disagree with them making him way too pitiable.
Sexy?
Well, I mean, he does bring off the sexy and the intensity very, very well. I didn't like the whole. It's okay that he killed all these people because they lied to his wife and she killed himself, and he's very sad. I didn't like that part.
Personally speaking, my gripe with this is kind of the genesis of Dracula as anti-hero. And it's a direction for the character in the zeitgeist that I really don't care for.
So that almost sounds like a very prejudiced opinion where you're not judging the movie on its own merits. It's kind of like saying, I hate the Avengers because what the Avengers did to film.
No.
But
I hate the Avengers because the Avengers sucks.
But it does that in this film to a certain extent too.
No, I'm for our audience, I'm not really picking at Robert as such, because Robert can defend himself. But and I know what he's trying to get at, but I feel like for our audience sake, that you cannot like something because how it affects the greater film industry, but you still have to judge the film by its own merits. And so looking at Bram Stoker's Dracula, I think we ever go back and do like an on trial for it or part of a triple feature, you can look at what works and what doesn't work. But I would not rest solely on how it affected the character in future films as my only criticism.
But even taken on its own merits, it's a bad decision for this movie to try and cast him in that light. This movie is one of those bizarre ones where there's a lot technically that's exceptional about it. It has one of the best casts you'll ever find.
I was going to say,
even Keanu?
I was going to say, isn't the set design on this like some of the best in
film?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, you got Gary Oldman, Anthony Hopkins, Winona Ryder. Even Keanu Reeves, who at this point in his career is a bit more like Woodpecker Keanu than what he kind of became later.
Mm-hmm.
John Wick versus Dracula.
Which might be coming. We'll see.
That they can book Nicolas Cage as Dracula. I'll be down if they want to do that.
But this is also like maybe the most definitive line in the sand for a director quality-wise that I've ever seen, because this is directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and this is the line where you think this movie falls is subject to some merit of level of debate, but everything before this is remarkable. Some of the best films ever. Everything after this, like the fact that he did, for some reason, like it wasn't Apocalypse Now that actually broke him. This movie somehow became the line in the sand about his filmography. Like, there's one of the harshest before and after lines of demarcation you will ever find in a filmography. This one for Coppola.
All right, and here we go with number 1.
The
to
original.
no surprise,
Left.
Yep.
Yeah, it's Dracula. I don't know. Maybe we could put like Van Helsing. Dracula, 1931. I mean, what can one say about this one?
I think for most people, when they associate Dracula, they associate Bela Lugosi and his accent, which was full Bela, not anything the character had to that point. But, it's everybody's first visual I think they ever get of Dracula is probably Bela Lugosi in that role, at least up to a certain age it was. I don't know about now, but I know
Dorian,
like 20
Bela
years ago.
Lugosi's dead. Bela Lugosi.
Well, I'd rather listen to the Ballad of Dwight Fry by Alice Cooper. But
oh my God. All right. We're talking The Last Voyage of the Demeter tonight. The Last Voyage of the Demeter, also known as Dracula, Dead and Loving It. No, The Voyage of the Demeter is in some international markets. 2023 American supernatural horror film directed by someone's name who I'm not going to even bother pronouncing.
No. Do it.
No.
This will amuse me.
Why do you
Hey, look,
bully
let's
me?
steal another gimmick from the Casual Heroes. Mark, pronounce the name.
Go ahead, Mark.
You're all bullies and terrible.
We believe in you.
The first name is easy.
Andre.
There we go. Second name.
Okay.
Sound it out.
Overeem. Oh no.
No.
Let Brock Lesnar.
No.
Watchmen. V for Vendetta.
Keep doing. You can do it.
Overdahl.
Close enough.
Overdahl. All right. Andre Overdahl, and written by Bragi F. Shute Jr. and Zach Alkowicz. It is an adaptation of The Captain's Log from Star Trek, a chapter from the 1897.
How did they hang on? As a minor aside, since you brought that up.
Yes.
Y'all might have seen more of this than I have, but did they ever do Dracula in Star Trek? Because if not, that seems like a wildly missed opportunity.
They kind of did Nosferatu and Buck
Didn't they
Rogers
do
in the 24th century.
Yes, where they found the 25th century version of a cross in that little gem.
Yeah.
Wilma got turned. She was hot.
From the 1897 novel Dracula by Bram Stoker, the film stars Corey Hawkins, who plays Dr. Dre in Straight Outta Compton, yo. Aisling,
No one cares.
Shut the fuck up. Aisling, Francesca, Liam Cunningham, and David Dalmatian. I'm not with the names tonight. Its plot follows.
And here you are telling me to.
Yes, its plot follows the doomed crew of the merchant ship Demeter, led by Captain Elliot Cunningham, who plays Cunningham, who attempt to survive the treacherous ocean voyage from Transylvania 65000 to London while being stalked by a legendary vampire known as Alucard, who is played by Javier Botet. All right, Robert, take it away.
So this is a very straightforward kind of movie. We open with the delivery of Dracula's coffin, as well as all the requisite amount of earth that it has to be buried around to the Demeter. We meet a couple of new crewmen, including our general protagonist, Dr. Clemens. He's trying to book passage back to England, and he tries to hire on as a hand there, and they don't take him initially, but then somebody else sees the crest of Dracula. Another one of these smart people in horror movies. They're not on screen long because they make good decisions. He sees the dragon crest and goes, "Nope, I'm out."
Good night, baby.
Good luck with that.
I wish you well. I'm not worried about leaving you as a reference. So they wind up hiring Clemens, and he gets to meet some of the people on the ship. The captain's grandson, the first officer, a few other people on board, and we set off. We are leaving again from Bulgaria, so we're traveling through the Mediterranean, up around, and over to England. That's our path. And as we're going along, well, things start going sideways, as they are wont to do. First, the animals start dying. Well, no, first they find the girl. Sorry. Bit of a storm. One of the crates of earth tips over. The doctor paws through it and finds Anna, I believe was her name. Young girl in the box of dirt. And they pull her out, and they're like, well, it's a stowaway. We should probably just throw her overboard. Let Poseidon deal with that stuff. And the doctor goes, we could do this a more humane way. And he takes a look at her and goes, she's clearly dealing with an infection and requires a blood transfusion. World's best doctor, by the way.
Well, Dr. Dre said, you
Please don't.
said. Why is your face red?
Nothing, you idiots.
Yeah, Peck gets it.
I do not understand your references.
Okay, Whitey.
He starts giving her blood transfusions from himself consistently, and doesn't himself suffer from anemia. But again, things start going sideways. All the livestock is killed. The ship dog is killed. And credit to this movie for being willing to kill the dog. Then some of the crewmen start disappearing one at a time, generally one a night, somewhere in that vicinity. And things start going, it looks wrong. We don't quite know what's going on. Then they kill the kid. And I applaud this movie for killing the kid.
That's like the one comment I have to make about this movie, by the way. But keep going.
And the closer they get to England, the worse things are getting. And the girl knows a little bit about Dracula because she's from the village that is immediately under his control.
Yeah, she was sacrificed to him, basically.
Yeah, the villagers offered up. You need a. Dracula was like, you know what? I'm going on a voyage. Like, here, take a snack.
Right.
Somebody.
Don't forget your packed lunch.
Oh, fuck off!
You're
I was
leaving?
just about to
Here,
say
take
that.
this with you.
It's like
It's dangerous to go alone. Take this.
Mom made me a sack lunch. Get me out of here! Shut up!
And,
My baloney has a first...
catch your death.
My baloney has a first name. I'm Steve. Shut up! Go
I know. I'm kind of enjoying the medley. But again, the crew is killed off one at a time. We get to the final handful of people. The captain's gone a little bit insane as the death of his grandson. That'll do it. Some of the crew members are partially turned and burst horribly into flame when exposed to the sun.
That was cool.
It really was. And they decide, okay, we'll have a trap. We'll come up with a trap. We'll injure it. We'll tie it down. We'll sink the ship, and it'll just float, and that'll save us.
Lobster.
And we'll all get into the lifeboats, and we're close enough to the shore we can get there. Well, that would have been a good plan. It really might have. But Dracula can fly. And this removes. This is a strategic advantage they were not prepared to deal with.
Well, we find out that Dracula can fly because our stupid, overly religious fanatic cook decides to try to fuck the whole game over.
Yeah, he at one point he leaves in a rowboat, and Dracula chases him down.
And I'm sorry if I'm swimming away from anyone. I'm not trying to interrupt you, Robert. This is just for anyone who's watched the movie and had the same thought I did. If I'm trying to swim away from a monster, if I'm quoting any book of the Bible, I'm definitely not quoting Jonah.
You are not wrong.
Not 8. Don't.
I actually like that just because it's obvious what they were doing with that, and I had a laugh at it.
I liked it too. It was just one of those moments of like, dude, literally anything else. Quote Leviticus or number. This guy begat this dude.
Not Leviticus either. Someone rises from the dead in that.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe I don't know.
Leviticus is all about the appropriate way to sacrifice things.
Yeah, sorry. It's been a while.
So
should have quoted from the Book of Austin as the Dracula's like chase after him. Austin 3:16 says, "All right, go on."
So, and again, we arrive.
Hang on, fuck you for giving me an eye roll for that, Pat. You're just as big a wrestling dork as I am, Mr. Luthez reference.
But we're actually referencing the actual thing, and your reference is Austin 3:16.
We have a wide audience. It's gotta hit all the quadrants.
I'm trying quadrants. No, like referencing Austin 3:16 is the what's the most casual reference that's like, Spider-Man's my favorite hero.
Just keep going, you jerks.
Spider-Man's nobody's favorite hero.
I hate doing podcasts. I hate doing podcasts with the two of you. You fucking gang up on me.
Well, I'm gonna take
to Dorian. Hi, Dorian.
You take cheap
hey, Dorian,
references.
Has Mark ever told you about his dog?
Oh, fuck that. Anyway.
Wow, God has spoken.
Hey, Mark, didn't you pick... Wait, Mark.
Yes.
Didn't you pick James Toney to beat Randy Couture in an MMA fight?
I still stand by it.
Anyway.
So Christian's pretty expensive these days, speaking of the Bible.
Now that we've razzed Mark about all these obscure things.
At least what's his face tried against GSP. See, I got myself. Fucking move on already. I mean, in life, like, do we have to go through the entire 20-year history of my terrible podcasting? Go.
So, Robert, this movie about Dracula.
Oh yeah, Dorian. Dracula kills a couple of more people. They start sinking the ship. Where the captain dies, strapped to the helm as he's supposed to be, clutching a crucifix. They're able to, the last two, Clemens and Anna, are able to escape from Dracula via a bit of luck. Part of the mast falls and pins him. So they get in a boat, and they try to get in a boat, and then they wind up clinging to wreckage as the ship is steered into the shore into the coast of England. Dracula kind of leaves them be But Anna has become too much a vampire, so she paddles off to see the sunrise one last time. Clemens swears revenge, and he paddles himself into shore, Jaws style. Goes into a tavern and and vows to hunt down Dracula. And the ending is one of my gripes with this movie. But he is then menaced, and he's hunted a bit by Dracula as well in the tavern where he was resting, because he knows the eventual destination of the earth and the coffin that was being brought out. So he knows where he's supposed to be going. But he's I imagine there was a bit of a studio mandate to you can't kill everyone, so they left that open ended. But they should have killed him too.
All right, Dorian, why don't you go ahead?
Straightforward movie.
I'm gonna kind of just steer the ship tonight because I really only have the one comment. So go ahead, Dorian, Pat, and then Robert.
I really liked this movie. I was concerned when the trailers came out. I was like, man, how are you gonna make a full-length movie out of a section of the book that really isn't that focused on a lot, if at all? I mean, I think the most it's focused on in any Dracula film I know is probably in Nosferatu, because we do have a lot of scenes on the boat. But I was actually really, really happy with it. It felt more like a horror drama, like in the same line, not to the same level as, but in the same line as like The Exorcist, or
it got compared to Alien, but on a pirate ship.
I was actually, that was my next protocol.
Mm-hmm.
No pun intended. Was it felt very Alien as well. I loved the claustrophobia of again, those wide shots. We're out in the middle of the ocean. It's like, man, we can't go fucking anywhere.
Right.
If we're right and this damn thing's coming to kill us, we're fucked. I liked all the characterizations were done, in my opinion, very, very well. I was sad when the dog died, and I was like, well, that's a good way to get us to hate Dracula pretty much right off the bat. Every other film, it's like, hello, I'm sexy. It's like, nope, bitch, you killed the dog. I'm sorry, you have to fucking die. These are the rules. But I liked that they didn't lean too hard into any relationships that would telegraph a death. In my opinion, I like the relationship between the grandfather and his grandson, where it's like he is like all captain, but like he wants to get out of this life, and he's like, I told my daughter that I wouldn't let the sea take all of his power from him, and I intend to keep that promise.
Yeah, and clearly not a fan of his grandson having to live that life with him because he's his guardian.
Yeah, and it's like all the scars the captains has taken on him, he starts to see in his grandson, as the grandson almost knows more about the ship than he knows about life. And it's like there's even cutaway shots for the grandpa's like, son of a bitch, I know we had to do this, but crap. What I call the asshole fodder characters were still interesting. Like, again, they're there to die. The guy who's all being a dick from day one to the doctor, it's like, well, you're just
and naturally he's the Russian,
right? But yeah, no, the characters are all done great. It was all wonderful performances. If I had to make a gripe about the performances, I wish we'd gotten a little bit more out of Dracula, but I understand at this point he's not the Dracula who's going to be hunting down Lucy and Mina. He's hungry again. They broke open his snack pack and he's pissed about it because he's hungry. And I liked that it was a more ferocious Dracula than we normally get. All the creaking, the sound design for one on the ship was fantastic. It really felt alive. That they built that ship. Very few shots, except for like the wide ones, obviously when they're in the storm, are all real. They're not CGI. The costume design, absolutely fantastic overall. One gripe when it comes to realistic versus CGI is I love CGI, and we've talked about on this show while I've been on it about CGI being best used when it covers up seams. Mm-hmm. And as a filmmaker myself, I agree with that. Even if I don't have the access to all the great CGI stuff, but I have enough that, again, we use it to cover seams. Javier Botas, something like that. Bote? Okay.
I think what we're going with. If we're wrong, we apologize.
Yeah, if you're watching this, Javier, so sorry. I'll apologize next Thursday at coffee. But I would have preferred a more practical effect Dracula in this. There were a couple of shots we had that were practical. A lot of it you could tell was CGI, and I felt that it covered up a lot of his performance. I've seen Javier and stuff before where he does use his his full body, and his full range of emotions, and he's a fantastic actor, and I really wish that they hadn't hid that under motion capture. However, them leaning more into a Nosferatu style Dracula as opposed to, even I'll start with mine, Gary Oldman or a Christopher Lee or, even a Bela Lugosi. I like this more monstrous version of him. I love the character of Anna. She was, you felt from her from day one. And if you are a vampire fan, Pat, I'm sure sorry, you're over here. You felt this wherever you are, that way, this way,
other way.
There we go.
Wherever you point, that's where I'll be.
Right. Just see Mark moving his box around. Point in one direction and stay there. If you're a fan of vampire lore, she's probably doomed. They're not going to pull a Near Dark and be like, I'm a veterinarian who knows how to do good blood transfusions and you'll be fine. Sorry to all you Near Dark fans out there.
We could have used Tim Thomerson, though.
I'm sorry?
We could have used Tim Thomerson in this, though.
Yeah, okay, yeah, definitely. That would have made life a lot more easy.
For as much as there is good about Near Dark, the veterinarian that was a dumb point.
But yeah, I'm trying to make sure I got everything out this time. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably bounce in with stuff, but the cinematography was absolutely dazzling. I loved it. There was actually a moment when things kind of got calm after the first death, that just the cinematography and the way they had the ship noises and the movement was almost kind of soothing. And it was a nice kind of like, it's almost lulling us into a false sense of security, even though as horror fans, we're like, nope, stay awake. This is how people die when you fall asleep. Fuck that noise. If it ain't Dracula, it's Freddy Krueger. But no, overall, I was absolutely blown away by this film. It surpassed all my expectations. I loved the as it is a Universal film and they own all their own, their old stuff. The cane that's in the box when they say, we've now found where the devil sleeps. This new updated version of the Wolfman cane, which I actually own, a replica of the original one. To me from the Wolfman, 1941, was just, that's awesome. Yes, and him having it at the end, and you can still see some like white hair under his top hat, so it's like he is becoming a little bit more human, but he's still monstrous. Robert, I'm interested to hear what your anger was on the ending, but we'll obviously get to that. But yes, overall, I would give this a 7 out of 10. 7.5 out of 10. Go see it in theaters if you can. It is well worth it. It is 2 hours. That includes credits. There's a lot of credits and animators and stuff, so that takes up tail end of the runtime. One of the great things about the runtime is that it keeps leading you to think, okay, we've only been here like an hour. We've got to be wrapping up, and it's like, nope, not yet. It keeps you in.
That's actually one of my complaints. But great, go ahead, Pat. Why don't you jump in with your craft review?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, I really enjoyed this. I think it's one of the better takes we've seen on the Dracula mythos in the last decade, really, as far as stuff we've gotten going back to, like, say, Dracula Untold and movies in that vein. I like that they took an element of the story that's really, really small and decided to expound on it, because again, we get one chapter in the book, the Captain's Log, but there's so much that happened during that chapter that has never been expounded on really to this level. And again, a lot of the criticism is levied at the scenario in this, but it's like, have you guys ever read the book? Do you understand that, what's going on, and that, we know that this is a doomed voyage. The title itself says The Last Voyage. What did you think was going to happen? It's like, It's like I make fun of people. I was on a date and I saw the movie Lone Survivor with Mark Wahlberg. And I'm like, yeah, it says Lone Survivor. Did you think the other guys were making it? When she's crying, and obviously that went really well.
I don't think that's I'm with you, Pat, and to those people who are like, I don't want to go see this movie, or like it's telegraphed or whatever. That's dumb, and here's why: because it's not about, like, wasn't like a couple of shows where Robert and you and I were talking, and we were talking about Oppenheimer, and I'm just like, I had a problem with the atom bomb. It's like, well, it goes off, right? Like,
oh God, what's gonna happen?
This is the definition of, it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Yeah,
right. It's what you do. For those people watching, it is not the telegraphed ending, the thing that you should be focused on. It is how we get there. It is what they do with the material. Yes, everyone's gonna die on this ship. No shit. how do we get there? How do they die? What do they do with it? You know, a lot of the craft elements that Dorian brought up, like the sound design, these are things you watch film for, not because, well, everyone's dead, so why am I watching this? Like, that's dumb. That's a
No, you
dumb
watched
way
Game
of
of Thrones for all those seasons and hung in there, so shut up and watch the movie.
Yeah, and again, from a craft standpoint, I am in full agreement with Dorian on the set design, how beautiful it was, how the costumes were just spot on, and really the music again was scored very well to set the mood, to bring tension when it needed it, to alleviate that and put you back at a sense of ease for how long remains to be seen. I think that was structured really well. I want to give credit to our I don't know what else he's directed, honestly, offhand. This is the first one
I can give you a few, actually.
I think he had it good for some very good shots.
Okay.
No, hang on. Let me do this.
Why?
Because I first came to him via a smaller movie that he did in his native Norway called Troll Hunter, which is a found footage style film and one of the few found footage movies I actually liked. He did. So that's a fun one. There's some really fun creature design in that one too, with the different kinds of trolls that they get into, because they go with actual like mythological trolls rather than just the traditional fantasy ones. That one's fun. He did very recently. He did scary stories to tell in the dark, the anthology one that we reviewed here. That's one of his. He did something in between there that was kind of fun.
The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Which I really like. I really like that one.
Mortal in 2020, and then Uma, which I feel like this Sandra Oh movie, Uma, people were actually like talking about when it happened last year. Oh, sorry, and he was the executive producer on that one. He had no other craft. He didn't write or direct it, but he did direct the other movies.
To get back to the point, I think he has a very good visual instinct in a lot of these shots that we saw. Again, going back to the wide shots of when you see the ship at water, going back into the tight shots, the kill shots, and even the sunlight effect was done really, really well. When the guys exploded based on sunlight.
One of the more horrific visuals for that Fate of Vampires because normally these days it's a lot cleaner. It's more about there's a little bit of fire, and I mean it's not that you can't get some horrific reactions out of that, but the slow
this was torturous
burning one was really
Think about when they started it in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show in the 90s. Was just that immediate, you'd see them and they just poof. And then, we got to Blade a few years later where there was those embers, but it was still, the skin going away, skeleton.
Quick.
Yeah, and then poof. This was like, no, if this is God's wrath against a demon, this is supposed to hurt.
This is the most like vivid one of those since Dracula ascended to the roof of the building, and we saw his body staged dramatically back until it was a skull and it crumbled.
Right.
So I think tremendous credit for how he handled that. In terms of the performances, again, Javier, we're going with Bote for now. To be this silent kind of menace, and again, there were 3 films that I saw this compared to. Aliens was one, Predator was one.
Yeah.
Again, very similar premise. And the other, which I liked the most, was The Thing. Largely because, again, much like Aliens, the setting, there's no escaping this. Like you're stuck there with this monstrous entity that's picking you off one by one by one, and doing so in this instance under the cover of night. And you don't know how to combat it. You get an inkling when you see everybody start to burst into flames, but even their plan is dramatically flawed because they don't really pick up on that. The Clemens, the doctor, Corey Hawkins is, I believe, who plays him. I'd like him to have been a little smarter. They really kind of upped the cheese hero factor with him as the movie goes on, which is kind of a shame. The initial idea of blood transfusions, as silly as it was, that he immediately was like, "Oh, she immediately needs this." That was a little bit hackneyed. But then again, it's it's fending it off, it's doing good. But then again, we figured out that sunlight destroys them, so we're going to drown him. We're going to keep him as far away from sunlight as possible. That'll work, everybody. I am a learned doctor.
I have to agree with you. Like, I would have. It seemed like they even with the ending, they're trying to set him up as like a Van Helsing, which I didn't have necessarily a problem with if they had followed through when he does talk about his backstory, being the doctor of the King of Romania. But like once they found out what color his skin was, they fired him. If they'd allowed him to be that and been like, I I saw things like this before, and I always told myself there was a wild animal, but now I've seen what the monster is. I used blood transfusions then. They should work now,
Right.
at least a little bit. It's more dialogue, but at least it would have given us a more interesting, and as you said, smarter hero.
Yeah. Aisling Franciosi, who played Anna, again, brilliant throwback in terms of like the tortured vampire mistress.
Yeah.
She was great in the role. I felt her pain the whole way through.
Absolutely.
It's weird because it's kind of hard to generate sympathy for that character these days. And she does a really good job with her, again, with the physical acting. Like, you believe the physical wreck that she is at various points in time.
They could have made her just like the dumb girl thrall who's just like, he will come and destroy you, shit. But like, giving her character, and again, I love that scene when she like pulls the dress down, and it's just, again, she's been used like a snack pack. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it's even just in that moment, there's not a lot of dialogue. It's just visual. It's like, and they've healed, and it looked, and when she talks about the dirt filling in those wounds, it's like, do you need a hug? Like
that took me back to the Night Stalker, and like when Kolchak's in the house and he finds that one lady who's been kept there basically as a human blood bank. But again, this was really, and again, her acting was just really so sympathetic. You felt it for her. Her ending is not going to be a good one. Nobody's ending in this is going to be a good one, quite frankly. But the fact that they can still rope you into that level is really good. Again, you pointed to Captain Elliot. Captain Elliot's facial acting and the despair, even before any of this goes on. I just want to be done with this.
That is a man that has been beaten down by the world.
Yeah.
And he wears that on his face.
Well, I thought his performance somewhat reminded me of a more nuanced Captain Smith. I know a lot of people aren't fans of the 98 Titanic, but Bernard Shaw... Bernard Shaw, when he played it in Titanic, had that same thing of like this weary, I'm done. Can we just get through this? And as more of it goes away, it's like, no, we're and I love him talking to, David Bastarino, where he's like, you would have made a great captain if we only could have made London.
He
given up, and just in that line, it's like,
he carries such gravitas with his voice. Like there's this bit when he's talking with Clement and he says, "We're a doomed crew on a doomed ship. We're not even setting our own course anymore.
The devil below is,
and
one destination for us.
We're going to hell one by one."
All right, Pat, anything else?
Yeah, I would give this in that range of like a 7.5 out of 10. It's very enjoyable. Little nitpicky stuff here and there, but I think it's as enjoyable a horror film, especially in the supernatural vein, as I've seen in a long, long time. And if we had our picks of this or Renfield, guys, I think we're all taking something like this over that any day.
Yeah.
So this was just shy of 2 hours. It's a minute short. I don't know. I think the length. I don't think it earns its length. I think it needed to be 90 minutes. This needed to be a little bit tighter. I think the director.
Well, to that point,
yeah,
you could have. This is one of my gripes. I have a few very small gripes with this movie.
Is it about
first act is slow?
Well, a little bit. Hang on. There's a little bit of the setup that could have maybe been expedited a touch better.
We needed to get the kids to the mall a lot faster than we did.
But more than that, I think what this was missing, and this is a very difficult thing to do. In fact, you can kind of count on probably one hand the number of directors who are good at kind of fostering this on camera. I didn't quite get what I wanted more was the camaraderie of the crew.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a slightly missing element. And again, that's hard to do. I mean, the guy who always sticks out in my mind about this is Anton Fuqua, who even in some
Magnificent Seven.
Well, not just that. There's some lesser movies of his.
Mm-hmm.
His version of King Arthur, which
Mm-hmm.
stars Clive Owen and Ian Grofford. Keira Knightley's in it. The big highlight of that movie actually is the interplay between the Knights of the Round Table. There's this almost instant and immediate sense of their friendship and their camaraderie and how they are together.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes across as very, very genuine. And that's one of the things I'm missing here. This is a crew that's been together for a while. And even if this is a professional setting, when you're on a boat with someone like this for a long period of time, there's just idiosyncrasies in how you interact with each other.
I want to piggyback on what you're saying, though, because I don't think they differentiated the people in the crew enough to where when they start getting picked off by Dracula, you cared. It was a comment that was made to me with the girl I went with, and I kind of, she was like, the first half of this movie is really, until Dracula starts killing people, I'm really bored by this. And credit where it's due, I saw where she was coming from. If you don't differentiate the crew enough, if you don't give the audience a reason enough to care about these guys when they start dying, it just becomes about the kill itself, the action of the kill, not the value of the emotion inherent in the kill.
Had we gotten interplay of, hey, when the ship settles, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going to take some time off with my wife and son. We're going to go start our cropping. And then another one goes, no, finally starting my fish business. And, they have all these grandiose plans and such. And now none of that's happening.
We had a POV character that was not a sailor. He'd been on ships. He was raised on a ship, he says later. Mm-hmm. But like you could tell, he wasn't there. There was an obvious moment when he gets on the ship and they're making sail to just show the split second, like someone tosses a rope. The other person doesn't hardly even look. They just catch it, start moving it. You could have racked the camera all around the ship showing that happening, come up to a wide shot, and you would have had some of that camaraderie already.
Yeah, the rhythm and synchronicity of people who work together for a long period.
And in the absence of that first act really drags.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't want to complain too much about it, but like I said, in a 2-hour movie, it doesn't really start picking up until Dracula starts killing people, and then it's just about watching Dracula kill people.
Well, you guys saying about the camaraderie thing, that the first guy who gets thralled and kind of becomes our crazy Renfield in a way, banging his head against the door, it's like they almost realized as they were filming that scene right before he's going to die that they were like, crap, we've given these people no reason to care about him. Throw in a line about he has a daughter who's about the same age as the girl we found, and she's very smart and pretty. So we'll be like, when he's dead and he's all like, or we think he's dead, it's like, oh, his daughter's probably not going to see him again. That sucks.
The other thing about it is, again, Corey Hawkins is your titular hero in this, and then there's Girl who plays Girl. And so you're rooting for both of them to survive this thing, but you're not rooting for anyone else really to survive. That's the other part. Like when I think about Alien, nobody on that crew is necessarily a dick. You don't necessarily want to see the crew of the Nebuchadnezzar or whatever the hell her ship is called. But yeah, you're not necessarily rooting for those people. Like,
wait. Did you just say Nebuchadnezzar?
He did.
Yeah.
You couldn't come up with a Bible reference other than Austin 3:16, and you
no.
Nebuchadnezzar out there?
Hang on. I know. No. He only pulled that because that's the name of Morpheus' ship in the Matrix. That's
you got it
from.
You got it.
I was gonna let it slide, but I was like, all right. My Nostromo ball cap's like 5 feet away, and it was like, why?
Anyway, before I die,
yeah.
The only other person I cared about in this was the kid, and that's only because he's Kid. So it's like hero, girl, and kid, and everybody else, I'm just like, nah. Which is a problem I have with this movie. Like, not that I hated it or anything, but if we're sitting here kind of picking at it, that was a problem for me. I want to talk about just really quick, and then Robert, then you can finish up with whatever it was you were saying. Killing the kid was about the only thing that really, other than some of the finer craft elements of it, like set design and whatnot, killing the kid stood out to me because when do you, like, you and I have talked about that before, like they just don't kill kids on camera anymore. And this kid has a particularly horrifying death. And I was like, slow clap. Like, good job for being brave there. But other than that, like, I don't have much else to add. Like, I thought it was, I didn't think it was bad by any. It'll probably make my top 10 for the year, but at the low end, not at the high end. I didn't love it as much as you guys. Finish up, Robert.
Okay, on the plus side, we're dealing with. Again, I appreciate the ingenuity of this. Like, again, we're dealing with a bit of the Dracula lore that is perpetually overlooked. And really, like, the story of Dracula is more an epic than you might think, unless you've actually read the book. But that is a globetrotter of a story. Like, you go all over the place. So being able to kind of break it up into pieces and taking segments of it and going, no, look, there's this segment that's we can tell something really cool here. I really liked the idea. Credit to the guy playing Dracula, because he's able to get bits of personality through, even though this is clearly a Dracula that is more feral at this point in time. There's just a few moments, and it's not much, but there's a few when it stands out. Like when he's chasing one guy up the ship and the guy's begging him, please don't, and he just mimics his voice.
Mm-hmm.
That no, please don't, and then smiles. And it's near the end when Clemens is doing his I don't fear you, and he just menacing goes, oh, you will. And it's all again like that's the danger in that line is it draws like some very goofy immediate comparison. So getting that right is a hard thing, and he does. So getting some of those little ways to get through the personality of his version of Dracula, in spite of all that, I wanted to give him some credit for that one. Again, as far as nitpicks go, I could have done with more practical effects for the deaths, personally. Like the blood here is very CGI'd a lot of the time, and it's unfortunate. Like, we don't need to go Sam Raimi like bust out the fire hose here, but we could do a little more.
Who wants to drink from the fire hose?
So we could have done a little more with that. Again, that's a minor gripe. The ending I have a couple of minor gripes with the ending. One, I think it goes a bit too long. Like the finale sequence I like it. I like the idea. I like the setup. I think it is stretched a bit too far. I would have been better if you tell me that I can't kill Clemens on the boat. Here's how I would have ended this personally.
The same way as Titanic?
No.
I'll never let go, Anna. I'll never let go.
I want to paint you. I don't know.
Here, I would have
instead of him drawing her all beautiful in the book, it's like he draws her like on fire right before she dies.
No, that's as she's like sailing off and like bursting into flames. That's when he goes, "I want to paint you." Like I'm on fire.
Your sex is on fire.
You've never been so hot. Sorry, I had to make the obvious joke.
Hang on, god damn you.
Okay. There we go. I deserved it. No, I would have had him. Here's what I would have done with that character at the end. This is a character that is desperately trying to make sense of the world by his own admission. He is a learned man. He likes exploring the mysteries of the world and trying to figure them out. Fair enough. Plenty of people do. Here he has now encountered something that is utterly beyond it. Utterly beyond it. I would have had that break him.
I want to come back to that, but go.
Okay. So he survives, same way. Like he paddles back to shore, but he is desperate. He is slightly broken. He's in that tavern, not hunting Dracula necessarily, but more drunk. Like he might still be after revenge, but he doesn't know how to go about it.
You want to see like the old man running off Yosemite Sam's pirate ship going, "I was a man once."
No, hang on. I'm getting to a point.
Okay. Because
earlier on we have the narration from the captain as they're going through the logbook. When we switch to his narration, I changed this. It's not just narration for the sake of narration. It's a letter he's written. And he sends it, he winds up mailing it right before he gets got. But this is the letter that gets sent to Van Helsing that entices him to London. So as our bit of connection here.
Well, and then it wouldn't have made all those monologues earlier about how the world is cruel and all this crap just annoying and pointless instead of, playing into the actual finale, whereas instead they're just boring non sequiturs that make me dislike this guy because he's whiny.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a weird thing that they do with him towards the end. I'm okay. Again, you want to make him more of a hero. They just lean a bit too heavily into it. He's a medical doctor, and he's mentioned he studied astronomy, and I'm fine with him being curious. There's just you tried to do too much with him.
I think if they'd leaned more into near the end the racial thing, and it's like the color of his skin lost him all these jobs. He worked tooth and nail, but nothing had even if the ending had not just been him sitting in the bar, but him walking in and everyone giving him these like, oh God, I mean, they even call him at one point a darky. If this had been his reason for hunting Dracula is, what? The world I live in, the world that I'm going to, even to old age live in, is never going to make sense for people like me, no matter how hard I work. I now have a purpose. I have something that I can do. I can hunt this monster. I mean, I love one of Clement's lines right at the final fight when him and Dracula are fighting. It's like, because it's something I don't think I've ever heard someone say to Dracula is, you want us to fear you, but you're afraid. It's you who was afraid. You're afraid of what's on the other side. You know, you're afraid to die. And I really liked that. And the reason the ending doesn't bother me so much is it is kind of the Nosferatu Count Dracula has almost found a fun game to play. He's like, I'm going to let you chase me. You know, you stood toe to toe. You didn't just whine and cry.
Dracula, such a girl.
What?
Dracula, such a girl. Chase me.
He's so pretty.
He's dropping in a handkerchief. Come get me, boys.
But no, I felt like his thing was not like, you know, revenge, Punisher style. I think more dialogue or a couple lines of dialogue would have made it better. Even if he was like, you know, I don't have a purpose in this world. I didn't have a purpose in this world before. I would have wandered my whole life, but now I have a purpose.
That's a really good thing. And I still would have tied in the voiceover stuff to not just his inner monologue, but again, like there's something got Van Helsing to, if we're going to play around with the Dracula mythos a little bit, have him be the one that sends the letter that gets Van Helsing to London. He's the one that, I mean, he studied at Cambridge. You could easily mention, you could open his letter with, you know, I attended some of your classes. You were a guest lecturer.
Or have him be Van Helsing's favorite student. And again, if you wanted to get
something like that.
The next movie, you could have Clemens kind of take over as the Quincy character, the cowboy who always gets left out.
And as we all know, Germans like Van Helsing never done anything racist.
No, not at all. I mean,
they've never been the bad guys.
No, not once.
Thanks, Jed.
But yeah, that's kind of my only other gripe with it. Like, I don't hate him surviving. I mean, I kind of do, because I'd rather you just lean into the tragedy and everyone dies. But having one guy still alive that Dracula is now toying with, I like the vision that we got of Dracula, you know, him dressed up and the hint of what he looks like when he's putting on his man face. You know, he's starting to look more human. I'm down with all that. It's just, I think part of the reason it didn't land for me as well as it maybe could have is it feels a tad sequel baity. It's not, because I don't think they're trying for one, but that's just the nature of the movie business these days, is like, leave it a little open.
The Last Voyage of the Demeter 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Well, you wouldn't do The Last Voyage of the Demeter. You would do something else, but with a couple of the same characters still in the same world, you know. So
Last Voyage of the Demeter 2 Velocipaster.
There we go.
Still The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
The Last Voyage of the Titanic.
Titanic. There was a sequel. There was Titanic 2.
Right.
Okay, elevator pitch, guys. There's a big cruise liner ship with all these people who are on it, and they're rich people, and they're gambling and drinking and having a gay old time. But they all start dying on the ship mysteriously by various circumstances. One guy has the dice that he throws accidentally go into somebody else's mouth and chokes him to death. One lady who's stringing up her pearls that she's going to wear that night slips on them in the shower and cracks her head open and bleeds to death. And it's Final Destination, but then you find out that it's actually taking board on the Titanic. I'm down.
That was a good. That guy right there is a good guy to pitch to. There we go.
If you wanted to do another Final Destination, throwing it back in time,
but you don't know it's the Titanic.
No. I'm with you. Like, we just start on the cruise ship. Someone has a bad premonition, and we just go from there. Like, I'm down. That's a good idea.
Honestly, halfway through that, I thought you were going to be like, and Clemens is on the boat again, but this time he's played by Morgan Freeman. Here we go again.
Why does it always have to be vampire bats?
Or it's like, why does it always have to be vampires? Always have to be ships. Like more
I am sick and tired of all these mother vampires on this damn boat.
Ship.
The last thing I want to say, just this goes to the direction. There's some really nice tension-built scares here. There's some cheap jump scares too, but
not bad. I was sorry, just really quick when you're talking about jump scares, and I left this out of my notes. I was very, very happy that they didn't lean into the jump scare thing because they totally could have.
They absolutely could have. Again, there's a couple of them, but it's not that bad. There's a handful of scenes though that, again, you pay attention and oh wait, there's a silhouette there that shouldn't be. and then we look back and it's gone. Or the first time we see Dracula, he's kind of just weakly crawling out from under that staircase.
Mm-hmm.
And he just kind of slowly comes into frame. And I really like this whole scene where he gets the kid. Like, he's hiding from the zombie that's beating down the door, and then looks up, and you see Dracula kind of huddled in the corner, and then he just slowly stands up, and he's way too tall, and he's thin, and he's pale, and this shouldn't be.
Well, yeah, when the zombie stopped, like pulled his hand out and just stopped, I was like, he's in the room, he's in the room, he's in the room, get the fuck out. You know, and again, that just comes from watching too many horror movies, but it's like, oh, dude, damn it. You know, it's like.
But it's well done. So there's a lot of really nice shots like that. Yeah, I'm with you guys. You know, again, if we got a 10, this is an easy 7, 7.5, 7.6, something like that. It's got issues, but it's gorgeously shot. It's incredibly well set, mostly well acted. My nitpicks, again, they're a little bit like writing and editing issues that are kind of rearing their heads here. But as a general rule, this came across very well. I had a good time. Very few complaints.
Good. So everyone bitching and complaining about how Robert doesn't like anything. There you had. There you go. There's Robert gushing. I hope everyone's fucking happy, you lucky so-and-sos. Hang on. All right.
Oh, last thing.
Oh, my God.
No, I mean this. This is a
he's having his Columbo moment. Just one more thing.
It was nice to see earnest filmmaking again.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a world where everyone in the movies is chasing
creativity again.
No, this is different.
Okay.
This is stylistic. I have at times argued that we live in a post-creativity world. This isn't actually one of the movies that I think would be relevant for that criticism.
I cut that and put it on TikTok.
What we're dealing with here is filmmaking that eschews the I forget the word.
Tropes.
No. There's actually a very specific word. I can't remember it, and I'll look it up later. But there's a style of storytelling that's usually done in film and stage, where if the audience is worried, if the author is worried about the audience's reaction to something, if you're trying to go for, again, a genuine, earnest moment, and you think, what if this falls flat? Then it'll look stupid. So instead, you have the character joke about it.
Mm-hmm.
You have the earnest moment and then the joke, and it takes all the air out of the balloon.
I was gonna say, this is like the whole Taika Waititi thing that we've been screaming about how you can't have a fucking nice moment because it's got to be undercut with a joke.
Also, he sucks. So
yeah,
he really does. I'm gonna look this up in a minute because there's a specific word for it.
Okay.
But it was nice to get to a movie that doesn't. It's not quippy. It's not afraid to just let scenes breathe, let characters be characters.
There was realistic comedy. There was realistic comedy needed. It felt like real people talking to real people.
Yeah, and you can have comedic moments in these kinds of, in movies in general, but
it's understanding its own ironies, kind of, you know.
Yeah,
and being that level of self-aware of what you're doing.
And I hate to beat on the Avengers here too much because it's easy to point at the MCU for this, but Joss Whedon was the king of these terrible writing tropes, where he wasn't universally guilty of this. There's actually plenty of times, if you go through his catalog, where he's happy to let emotional moments be emotionally resonant. But the lessons everyone took from that was, jokes. Yay. And again, the Avengers is maybe one of the hallmarks of this because nothing is serious in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even when Coulson dies, goes into he gets mad at Cap, like, we're not soldiers, and then he goes into Loki's a full tilt diva. He wants flowers. He wants a monument built to the sky.
Yeah,
son of a bitch. And again, I love that moment, but I have to agree with you that it's like, again, one of the last big films to allow good comedy and realistic comedy, at least that I remember, was the Lord of the Rings movies, and specifically Two Towers. Very tense moment. We're trying to catch up with Merry and Pippin. We keep cutting back to Gimli being like, keep breathing. That's the key. Breathe. Yeah, again, it gives the audience a chance to breathe, but it doesn't take away from the moment.
Yeah, there's nothing to undercut the serious moments. When a character dies, there's not a joke about it. When we're in danger, let the audience feel the danger. Let the audience feel the tension. Let the audience feel the grief. The fact that if you were to try and remake Lord of the Rings with modern sensibilities, the end of that first one, it's not Aragorn just crying over Boromir's dead body. There's a sight gag. There's something stupid to
When do we
detract
eat?
from it. And I've really come to hate that in contemporary filmmaking because it's a crutch. You're afraid that something you're trying to do is going to fall flat, so you think that by pointing at it first, the audience will be laughing with you, not at you, and it doesn't work that way. It's nice to see genuine, earnest filmmaking again. So credit to everyone involved here.
I want to very briefly piggyback on what you said, and again, this is as a filmmaker, as a film student myself. Is this felt like an old school film? Like I'm talking Gone with the Wind era, where it's like a director and a writer came together and had a vision, and the production company went, "Here's the money, don't make it suck," and then sat back in their office chairs and signed checks without going, "Could you put a cool little butterfly that is like symbolizes the child's soul that still
Get a
floats
giant spider."
Yeah, freaking yeah.
This felt like a movie that had very few notes and no focus testing, and thank heavens.
Well, there's a great transition into how much money this didn't make and how no one was rewarded for their creativity. So with that said, here comes the no money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
Alrighty. On a budget of $45 million, this thing has made $6.5 million in the year of our Lord 2023. No good deed goes unpunished.
Okay, for the record, I found it. I remembered what it is. It's bathos. It's kind of the opposite of pathos.
Never would have gotten there.
All right. That's what you meant, but I didn't want to say it and derail you.
No, but if I'm struggling with a term like that by all means.
Okay.
For the fourth week in a row, Barbie is the #1 movie in the world. Shocker. And we'll talk about how much money it's made shortly. Oppenheimer went back up to the number 2 spot.
Also not surprising. Look, man, I kind of called that one.
Yep. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles went up a spot from 4 to 3.
You know what? And fair play to that movie. It seems to be getting good word of mouth. So
well, what's great is everybody loves Ninja Turtles, but nobody ever talks about them being teenagers. So that's where I decided to focus this movie. Oh, it's great.
I think.
Thank you, Mr. Rogan.
I think because people don't follow what studio does what. People are a little scared to take their kids to anything animated. It's like, what if there's gay shit in it? And then so people saw Turtles opening weekend and we're like, there's no gay shit in this one. This is actually really, really good, and it's not Pixar. And people are like, oh, fine. Huh?
We make that a t-shirt quote.
It's
animated, but what if there's gay shit in it? Hashtag morons.
Put it on a t-shirt, Mindy.
Well, hey, you know what? Chalk up another box office win for John Cena.
Hey, that's your brother, right?
Yes.
Hey, he's not on Twitch tonight. We're making it with the money, pal. We're making it with the money. All right. The Meg, who we reviewed last week, fell from 2 to 4. And speaking of oof, you can't win them all, Universal. Debuting at number 5 is the last Voyage of the Demeter.
Well, hang on. You mentioned the budget for this was only, what, 30 million?
45 million, pal.
45. Okay. So reasonably budgeted movie. We're coming up to an absolute wasteland.
Mm-hmm.
Like September is nothing.
September, baby. Woo!
So I'm not saying this is gonna, do gangbusters. This one, however, might wind up. This one might have more legs than you might think. That's the way I'm gonna phrase it. I don't expect it to, I don't expect it to do gangbusters, but
it'll got 8 legs because we're gonna put in the giant spider because John Peters is producing.
Okay.
Giant spider.
The same drum there, pal.
This one might, you know what? Here's the other thing about this one. If it gets close enough, it might do fine streaming. Like this is one of those movies that might find a good second life.
Sure. Yeah. Like The Flash did. A Haunted Mansion fell from 5 to 6.
Yeah, but no one cares about The Flash.
Talk to Me is apparently getting outstanding word of mouth and great reviews. That got reviewed by the good boys over at Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do, which will debut Friday. That rose from 8 to 7. Sound of Freedom 6 to 8. Mission Impossible 7 to 9.
Hang on. Sound of Freedom outdrawing Indiana Jones is never not going to be funny to me.
Yeah, that's this year's Morbius.
Never not going to be awesome to me.
You know what? you make a halfway decent movie, you find your audience, stuff can happen for you, and that might wind up, dude. Sound of Freedom might be the most profitable movie by the end of the year when it's all said and done. Not the highest grossing, but budget to return, that might do it.
Indiana Jones 9 to 10, and then debuts this week were Jules at number 11, Day by Day at 24, Aporia 31, a re-release of Winter Kills at 32, Between Two Worlds 39, The Others, another re-release at 43, Love Life at 47, and Operation Napoleon debuting at number 49. Worldwide.
I saw Talk to Me, and I got confused and thought they had re-released Listen to Me, which I didn't understand because that's a movie about Kirk Cameron being on a debate team in college.
All right, and we have some movement in the worldwide box office with Super Mario Brothers still the number one movie. Nobody has taken the title from Super Mario since it won it in April. However, Barbie, hot on its tail at number
Barbie
2.
Probably will.
The second movie of this year to cross $1 billion, and I think the first movie domestic to cross 500 million. So, sorry, second movie, because the first one was Super Mario. So good for Barbie. It's kicking all kinds of ass. That's at $1.1 billion. Guardians is staying where it is at 845. Fast X
not able to, dude. The fact I'm gonna say it again. The fact that that's not making money on a 700 million gross is pathetic.
Yep. Spider-Man now on PVOD is at 684. Oppenheimer also kicking all kinds of ass. One of the more profitable movies this year. Big money, Chris Nolan.
You're pulling in 6-1 on you. You've spent 100 million. You get 600 and change, probably closer to 7 when it's all said and done. You're doing good.
It's cool. It's got that extended run. It's getting more IMAX screens. I mean, a lot going in its favor. It's one of the big wins of one of the ones we can really speak positively about.
And hang on, going from a big win to a big loss.
I was going to say the opposite of that. Little Mermaid died in the 5s, as we said it would. Ooh. Mission Impossible. This is one of the ones where we got it completely wrong. We thought this was going to be $1 billion baby.
I have figured out why. Believe it or not.
Why, Robert?
So let me ask you a question, Mark. Why was Top Gun Maverick such a success?
Because it gave men what they wanted, and
no.
You should always give men what they want.
Well, you're going a bit too far, but the general premise is correct. That was a movie for men.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, there's not a lot of those.
I do this with you every week. I'm aware.
Yeah, I know, but no, that's for the audience. Like you and I are in the weeds on this stuff.
Yeah.
Not a lot of movies for men out there.
Yep.
So Maverick was one. Dead Reckoning wasn't.
Agreed.
And that's where it fell flat. That's why it fell flat relative to what you might have thought was going to happen coming off of Maverick. Yeah.
All right. Ant-Man in the Fentanyl Corpse died in the 400s, and it's just at this point enough movies are doing better, and it's finally moving it out of the top 10. But it took this long to get there. Elemental, not what Pixar wanted, but it still made a decent bit of bread at 444. Transformers 436.
Okay, hang on.
John Wick 426.
Do me a favor on Transformers real fast.
Yeah.
Can you click on it specifically? I want to know how much of its money came from where.
All right.
So domestic it pulled poorly.
61, yeah.
No, it grows over there on the far right, 157.
Yeah.
So I want to see. So where's most of its money coming from is kind of my question here. So
domestic did 157, and then international 279.
Well, I know international, but like where specifically? So
Big Gate in France.
Yeah, it actually does seem to be doing well in France.
Doesn't that say everything about the taste of that movie?
Fucking France. The UK.
United Kingdom.
Yeah.
They put in the UK. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mexico. Peru.
Mexico was all right. Hang on. The Asian market. Here we go. Australia.
Indonesia. And China did 91.
Okay. Hey, hang on. Here's the thing about I mentioned this last week. Here's the thing about the Chinese market. We assume that studios get about 50% of ticket sales value here domestically. That's usually what it is. You get a quarter in China.
Yeah.
So if you're making the bulk of your money there, you need to do much better than you think.
Okay. Indiana Jones at 375, only second to The Flash at 268 as the biggest bomb in cinematic history.
Yeah.
Yikes.
No. Indiana Jones is a bigger bomb because it had a much larger budget.
Here it's Hiroshima and Nagasaki, baby. The Flash and Indiana Jones.
You know what? And they deserve it. They deserve every bit of that.
And I just keep winning.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at 96. That is worldwide. So I think just so I can acknowledge my mistake and give you guys yet another thing to make fun of me for. Yeah, I think I said that Last Voyage of the Demeter was going to be the #1 movie. Not even close. Still Barbie. So the question becomes: Do I double down and say Blue Beetle is the #1 movie this weekend, or do we just keep saying Barbie until fucking September at this point?
We say Barbie until they pull it from theaters.
Pretty much.
Okay,
dude.
With Demeter, we had a commenter, and it's one of my fans, so I'm gonna speak it out. Said that Last Voyage of the Demeter might get a second life with Halloween approaching.
Yeah, that's fine.
Again, just in the sense of it making its money back and encouraging filmmakers to continue to make movies like this, even if they're not going to be Barbie or Oppenheimer. Here's
the thing: you have to. Look, you make these movies, you give them theatrical exhibition. The idea is to make money in the theaters. That's what we're talking about. That's what we focus on. I'm not taking anything away from the movies that do second life on PVOD and in streaming, and that's great. And you can talk, and if you're like, this is my argument about its craft value and that it has this second life on home video, so people will watch it, and that means it's good. It's like, well, okay, that's great, but the whole point of this segment is to look specifically at theatrical exhibition. Right. And the fact of the matter is Universal gave this movie $45 million. It's not even going to come close to making that. No. And that it's a shame. We go back to this sort of discourages studios from taking any kind of chances. But to your point, and so that I don't feel like I'm beating up on anyone, you still have to fill up the streaming services with movies. Peacock still needs stuff, which would be Universal streaming service. There's still the opportunity to sell these things to like Netflix to try to make some of your money back. So
you can almost see them floating this out there at this time because it's so vastly different from the competition that they thought maybe they'd get that share of the audience to all go all in on it.
Well, the other side of that is, and we did this with Haunted Mansion, where somebody was like, well, what if they just released it around Halloween? Again, you cannot release every single horror movie you make in a single year in the month of October. That's ridiculous.
No.
So, here's the thing. August is a bad month. There's no reason to not have put this in August.
No. I think the gripe with Haunted Mansion in particular, that's more of a family horror movie.
Sure.
And the family horror movies, you do kind of want the general mood of the market to be on your side. I don't disagree with you with
my other question would be, what else does Universal have slated? Is there anything with a substantially larger budget that they would be more afraid of putting out there and bombing than this?
That's true.
Because $45 million, say what you want to say, comparatively to what's out there, is a conservative budget.
It really is.
Oh yeah, look, in a different conversation, we're applauding them for their fucking restraint. I have the list up here. I'll just quickly read this off.
I don't know what they have coming out, but I would imagine they may have had something bigger slated for this time, not understanding what a juggernaut Barbie would be / Oppenheimer.
So a couple of things. They have Strays coming out alongside Blue Beetle, which is the Talking Pets.
Dude, if Blue Beetle loses,
language movie.
Hang on, if Blue Beetle comes in behind Strays,
that'd be hilarious.
I think it will.
It might. It very well might. It's not tracking well.
Let's see. Nothing. We are now into October.
What else do they have coming out this year?
The Exorcist. The next movie after Strays is The Exorcist from Universal, and that's October 13th.
And do we have a budget on that by chance?
Sure. No.
Not yet.
And stay tuned on this channel because we are reviewing that movie, aren't we, Mark?
Yeah,
sure are, buddy.
I am so not looking forward to that one.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
But I'll talk about that at another time. But
R.I.P. William Friedkin.
Five Nights at Freddy's is day and date on Peacock, and that's got a budget, Pat, of $25 million.
All right, so really they're banking on The Exorcist. Like, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
And they did not want to put that out there during this.
Okay, now we're into November, and Universal's next thing is Trolls Band Together, which Pat will be seeing, the day it comes out, I'm sure.
Day opening.
Yep. Then we have...
I can't tell... You like enough weird stuff that I'm not sure if you're being sarcastic there or not.
I have not seen a Trolls movie yet.
Okay.
So.
I mean, you could have just kept that vague and just gone like full Tootsie Pop and be like, the world may never know.
All right,
I
and then
would
another
rather sit through Troll 2.
and then another animated feature is Migration from Universal Pictures. That's December 22nd. That's from the Illumination people. And then that's it. That's it for the whole year. So
again, they did not want to put The Exorcist up against this, so Dracula was sacrificed. Got it? Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
right.
honestly would have had them switch this with Renfield's drop date. I think Demeter might have done a little better if Renfield had not gone first. This had gone first, and then Renfield had hit during this.
Renfield absolutely could have hurt this box office potential by being as bad as it was.
you know, if I'm at Universal and I'm looking for stuff to put on Peacock, I'd have put Renfield straight to Peacock.
Yeah,
I wasn't on that review. I was out with my wife that night, but I don't remember it doing well. I mean, I saw it with my son. I saw it on a date, so I ended up seeing it twice. I laughed. I thought it was funny, but like that's one where you probably could have thrown that on Peacock and not lost your shirt on it.
Yeah, Renfield was very much, and I love movies like this. Renfield was very much a college drunk party movie. Like you put it on, and as you get more drunk, the movie gets better. All
right. So next week we got Blue Beetle, then Gran Turismo, and then we're to September.
We need to ask, like, how bad do we think Blue Beetle opens? We have to.
16 million.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna go
10.
Oh God, you got that low. I'm gonna go with 20 million.
You're optimistic. Let me look at the projection real fast. Hang on.
Well,
here's what I'm gonna tell you. I think it has like the Flamin' Hot thing going for it, where where it's
stereotypical and offensive to real Mexicans.
That's the one. But also it'll capture a size. I think Latino families with kids will go see it, and that'll make up $20 million.
Okay, so hang on.
Oh, go ahead.
Current projections are at 30.
Okay.
I doubt that one, if it does come in at like only 30 million for what they spent on it, and for it being a DC, one of your, in theory, movies that might try to restart this thing, that would be bad.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to think it's going to fall under that because
those
projections are going to come down over the week.
I was talking with a friend of mine, and this is about Marvel, but it ties directly into DC, is that they were talking about how excited they were that some of the more obscure characters are now getting, their stuff. And for the MCU, that works because, they kind of burnt out the main storyline. Now we're, going around the edges and picking what we can. But for DC has not really had a big, even consistent universe. So, and it's like, how many people know Blue Beetle that like weren't huge fans of like the Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon or, stuff like that, where the character actually showed up in guest appearances? He's not a big thing. Like you might get to 20, like Mark said, simply on people going, yeah, it's a superhero movie I haven't heard of. So I don't know. That's it,
Like I said, so the problem is, and I mentioned this a week or two ago with us guys in the bubble, we talk to each other. We talk to our friends also in the bubble, and you may not be interacting with people outside of that. And here's what I'll tell you. Like I said, I think Latino families looking to do something with their kids for the weekend will go see Blue Beetle, but I don't think you're going to get enough of them to where it gets over 20 million. That's my projection. Like, I don't think it's going to do 30, but you guys saying 10. No, people will go see this because, like I said, parents like to take their kids to the movies. This has got the kid from Cobra Kai in it.
Isn't everybody on vacation that week?
He looks like fucking Iron Man. It's like I think if you're not paying any attention, if you're just like
I think you're vastly misunderstanding
parent.
The Cobra Kai audience is basically us, not kids.
That show did fall off.
He's a pretty young man, is my point, and I think like there'll be kids like, oh, he looks cool. I like him. He has a nice face. All right.
Here's the problem, Mark, with your people like taking their kids to the movies. School's back in session, and that changes.
School's back in session in certain places. It's here in Florida.
And where it's not, families are going on vacation for that last week before school's back in session.
Yeah. I was gonna say in like the Northeast, they don't go back to school until the beginning of September.
It's in a rut. They picked a weird week to try and hit your big summer audience that you want kids to go see.
Yeah,
that's
all right. So let's finish out the last bit of this show with the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God!
No! No!
Continue our conversation of why can't we have nice things. The tomato meter is at 51%, but the audience score thought it was just ducky, 72.
Swap that over for me. I'm curious.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to. So, all critics, it's 51%. When you go to just top critics, it drops it down even further to 35.
Ladies and gentlemen, why we have this segment.
Indeed. And as far as the verified audience is 72, all audience just knocks it up 1 point to 70.
Who are worse, top critics or boxing judges, guys?
Oh,
Who gets it more wrong?
Hang on. Top critics? Because there's less excuse for corruption. You're just bad at your job. Like I accept judges being paid off in boxing.
Look, here's the thing. We tend to go insane when we see a bad call, but we're not seeing bad calls every fucking week as we are with movies. Again, why we do the segment. Yeah. The last voyage of the Demeter finds a fresh angle on Dracula's oft-told tale, although lackluster execution often undercuts the story's claustrophobic tension. I people have been asking me, especially since I've gotten a little bit more popular on TikTok, like, what is the story with your podcast? Like, what are you guys doing with the movie reviews and such? Actually, I had one person say to me recently, like, I don't really like your podcast. It takes you way too long. I just want to know if the movie's good or not. I'm like, slow down. Like, there's a whole thing we're doing here. But I part of the thing with this show is trying to remind people that that you really should look at the individual elements of movies and judge whether or not those elements of those pillars are good or not, or well done, well made. It's sort of, the lost art of criticism, movie criticism, is it's not about whether or not you fucking like it or not. Everyone's got an opinion of whether or not they like something. Who gives a shit? This is about judging individual elements of a movie. And part of the reason why we started doing this segment was we noticed that a lot of professional critics couldn't remember that. They don't know how to do their job either. And this to me is a great example of that, because we spent an hour talking about the superior craft element of this thing. I'm like, I may not have loved it, but who gives a shit? I can recognize a well-made movie when I see one. We have a guy who makes movies on this podcast. He's going, yeah, this was good, this was good, this was good. And then you look at the professional critics and you're like, how are you people so bad at this? How are you people essentially doing blog entry and Reddit threads for your reviews and not able to actually comment on a movie appropriately?
Don't insult Reddit like that. I've seen some decent Reddit threads.
Fair. And the audience says, Dr. Dre, you a basehead. A solidly scary Dracula movie, The Last Voyage of Demeter, will reward patient viewers with some intense scenes and plenty of eerie atmosphere. The audience got it right. The critics, like I said, oy.
No, we're shocked.
Look, I'm more than happy to say when the audience is way off base, they're more or less right here, and the critics are the ones.
The audience score was 71%.
Yeah, 72, 73.
Yeah, Dorian and I each gave it a 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
All right.
The biggest thing is that, again, and I don't mean to be shitting on the people who will be eventually critiquing my own movies, but thing is,
we don't have a problem with it.
Right, well, that's true. That'll be fun when I make a movie that gets on here and it's like, oh god, I worked with these people, I'm fucked.
Look, hang on. I am always very nice to Jeff Harris. I'd say he's a friend of the show. Used to podcast with him.
Yeah, his review was pretty bad.
He occasionally podcasts with him, so I'm always very nice to Jeff. So we were always nice to our friends. I mean, my friends aren't nice to me, but I'm nice to my friends.
Well, that's good to know for future. My whole thing is, and just to be very quick so we can move on to this, is that my biggest issue with critics is have you ever made a film? Have you ever been a part of one that you were putting together? The audience sits back and just enjoys it, and they can hate it, they can love it. Again, that's part of their job. These critics, it's it really bugs me sometimes. Go out and make a movie, right, and then come back and bitch. Once you've done that, I will listen to you. Until then, I'm listening to the audience because technically they're the one paying the bills.
The Hinge in a V with Dorian Price and Pat Mullin, Rachel Leichman of the Mary Sue, Robert Winfree. It is, yeah, I'm now just doing this with everybody. Everyone's getting a girlfriend or a wife or a Hinge or someone. I got thumbs up from Pat. It is simply just a movie about Dracula on a boat, and that's okay. That's fun. And she can see Russia from her house.
Yeah. That's an odd pull for your that's not very helpful as far as reviews go.
Bob Grimm of Reno News and Review, that vaunted periodical. This movie is scary and the monster freaked me out. That is all. Is Kevin Carr just like leading a cult now of bad reviewers? What the fuck is this?
No. What we've done is we've bullied Kevin Carr so much, other people are trying to make him look good by comparison.
Like, well, maybe if we're dumb, they'll read us out on their stupid podcast. Kimberly Elizabeth of Nightmare on Film Street. The last voyage of the Demeter is a shipwreck or a thrilling voyage. Let's call it a somewhat rocky journey that will leave some delighted and others reaching for the lifeboats. Get her, Winfree.
No, this is just... Why are there so many people out there writing right now who think this is a good way? This is a catchy introduction to what you're going to say. It's not, people. Please stop.
Let's see here. Hey, there he is. There's our friend. Kevin Carr, fat guy at the movies. A great idea with few surprises and a muddled plot and a murky cinematography. A muddled plot? Monsters slowly kill people on a boat.
My man, darkness is part of the spectrum. It's not. There's a world of difference.
He's on the fucking spectrum.
He might be. There's a world of difference between muddled, that's hard to read, and stuff that is deliberately obscuring. Understand the difference, please.
Jeremy Johns of JeremyJohns.com. Say it.
Jimmy John's? I could go for a sandwich.
Say it, Winfree. Do it. Dance, monkey.
This podcast will now be 3 hours long while we wait for Bitchy Yoga Mom to say the line.
Come on, Bitchy Yoga Mom, say it.
Don't feel like it.
You know
Come
what?
on, Jimmy John's is going to take a while now.
Dorian, you say it. Did you do Robert's role for him?
I don't know what the line is.
He's self-employed loser.
Self-employed loser. I'm trying to do my best Robert impression there.
Thank you.
No problem.
I appreciate you deepening my voice.
If you're a Dracula fan, you absolutely should watch it. Ugh.
That's an odd pull for the line, because I tend to think his review might have been a bit more useful than that, but...
All right, Pat Mullen's gym buddy, MV Moorhead of Less Hat Moorhead. Arrgh. Smooth sailing it isn't. Der Heap?
If you watch any Dracula movie, it happens in a storm. So no, it's not going to be smooth sailing. I know that's not what he means, but I'm just being so awful.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
All right. Robert Winfree's hetero life mate and friend of the show, Jeff Harris of 401mania.com.
Yeah, not a well-written review, but yeah.
A hackneyed, clunky script and dull, unappealing characters sink this experience shortly after it embarks. Oh, Jeff, you're better than that. This Dracula has fangs, but they are softer than butter. Oh,
again, somebody's clearly never read the book either.
That hurts. That hurt me.
I wonder if some of these critics, are just not fans of the genre. Like, I know this is a hot take, but I'm not a huge sports fan, and I know you guys review UFC fights. My review of a UFC fight, now I'd be nice about it. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Two guys beat the shit
It's
out of
funny
each
you mention that, because Jeff also does that and doesn't know what the fuck's going on.
Jeff hasn't been on the MMA show for a while at this point. I think the sport finally burned him out.
It does all people.
He's Robert. He's a UFC veteran, and
Christy Puchko of Mashable, top critic. I admire the ambition, yet I was unable to enjoy the ride for what it was, too caught up in where it might have gone. Ma'am, this is not your blog.
Yeah,
where it might have gone. Again, have we read the book?
Space.
No. Look, I'm actually.
It's not Machete, damn it.
It's not, but it should be.
We just take Dracula and we mix Disney's Treasure Planet. Boom, we're off to the races.
I'd watch that.
Only if they cast Emmanuel in it.
All right, last one, and then I'm done here. Neil Pond of Neil's Entertainment Picks. A B movie about the Big D. Dirt. The original OG of the undead, and it reminds us there's still plenty of life left in this old bat. I say it every week. These assholes are on Rotten Tomatoes, and yet we toil in obscurity.
Does anyone else get reminded of that Seinfeld with Gene's picks in the video store by Elaine when it raised of Neil's picks?
Look, that is a man desperately trying to be clever with the way that is constructed.
Right. Well,
the Dracula movie about the Big D was Emmanuel versus Dracula. Just go watch that.
It's true.
Speaking of big D's, myself and Jesse Starcher last night continued our journey from the corner to the deuce. This time we were in Yonkers, talking about housing and racism and single issue voters and whatnot. We were talking Show Me a Hero starring...
Hey, Mark.
What?
Do you ever want to annoy David Simon? I mean, the actual human being. Do you want to annoy him?
Not really, but go on.
Go on Twitter and tell him he needs to stop whining about the Colts leaving Baltimore, because by now they've been in Indianapolis longer than they were ever in Baltimore, and he will throw a hissy fit at you. It's hilarious.
Let me get
He's
right
complaining
on
about who's
that.
he, Herb Welch?
Anywho,
so you're sad the Dodgers left Ebbets Field? Yeah.
my dad is still aggravated that the Dodgers left Brooklyn. Leave old
Who's his
people
favorite
alone.
player? Is it Pee Wee Reese?
Anywho, myself and Jesse had a very intellectual conversation about Show Me a Hero starring They Fly Now, Oscar Isaac, and Dr. Octopus, Alfred Molina. Next week, or tomorrow rather, Alexis Hana will be doing a TV party tonight. I don't know who she's going to have on, but she'll have on somebody, and they will be talking Twisted Metal on Peacock. On Friday, we've got...
Could not have hired Will Arnett.
movies
Not
that don't
a
suck and
Firefly.
some that do. They are reviewing They Clone Tyrone and Talk to Me. And then it's Everyone Loves a Bad Guy Saturdays, where Robert talked Breaking Bad. And then we got Metal Hammer of Doom Sundays. We are re-airing our Blind Guardian Beyond the Red Mirror from 2015. Monday, we are reviewing Blue Beetle. Yes, this is one of the last... we might do the occasional Tuesday just in case something's going on, or I have Ronnie, and Ronnie can't record Tuesdays. But Damn You Hollywood is now moving to Monday nights. It was Tuesday for a while because I didn't record on Mondays because I used to watch Monday Night Raw, and then I was on source material for the longest time, and then we had the unknown, then we had lockdowns, and Jesse was essential. So just Damn You Hollywood kind of became like a Tuesday institution just because that's how my schedule worked out. But it made more sense to move it to Mondays, and I was doing some other stuff with my schedule now. So Damn You Hollywood, Mondays, starting with Blue Beetle this week coming up, the 21st of August. And then on Tuesday, David Wright and I are finally getting to Strange New Worlds Season 1. And then Dacian will be on the show on the 28th. We'll be talking Gran Turismo. I will be...
I love Clint Eastwood.
In the daytime, Alexis Hana pitched me an interesting idea. We're going to do our first comparison and contrast on TV Party. We're going to be looking at Dope Sick and Painkiller, both shows about the opioid epidemic.
Which is funny because that'll drive you to opioids. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to do that in the middle of the day. And then she'll be back at night with Benjamin J. Cologne, presumably, talking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. That's what we got going on. Pat, you and I someday, this next Thursday, a week from Thursday, the 24th, we will be looking at the quadrilogy, Manny Pacquiao versus Manuel Marquez. The night Manny Pacquiao was dropped like he had been shot by Manuel Marquez.
Not Lin-Manuel Miranda, Juan Manuel Marquez.
Yes, that's the
Pat
one.
Manuel.
So hopefully Pat won't, like he's done with the Barrera trilogy, cancel on me 2 and 3 times. I'll actually get this one done.
And I will also get Mark a copy of Rosetta Stone so he knows how to pronounce the names.
Not even going to happen.
After you show him love at first fight.
So that's what's going on with me. Dorian, go ahead and show us where you pissed from.
At Frankie Pictures on Instagram. If you're in the Kansas City area or the Kansas area, anything that needs to be recorded or photographed, we do it. Family events, big events, bands, we do music videos. Again, anything that has a camera pointed at it, we do, except for porn. There is a line.
No Emmanuel, everybody.
We'll talk about it later.
Right. Not on the podcast.
Gotcha.
But hey, if you guys want to actually see me in person this weekend in Denver at the Denver Airport Hotel, which the name is sadly escaping me at this moment, and I should have written it down, but I'm an idiot. This is why I have a crew when I direct. I will be at Denver Crypticon. Come see us there. We got a lot of great celebrities, including Heather Langenkamp, as one of our biggest ones that's going to be there. Come get pictures. Come see us. It's gonna be great. But yeah, at Frankie Pictures, we got 2 music videos. One for the band Mad Existence that comes out of here in the Missouri area. They're more up near the Ozarks. If you like country, if you also like heavy metal, they're a good band to check out. So we've got a new EP. They got a new EP dropping. Frankie Pictures is doing their music video. Also, the next music video up is on Instagram at Holly the Artist. Has a more ripped down R&B, but still modern feel, doing a music video for her. I can't really talk too much about either of those because, again, they're under non-disclosure agreements, but they are really great songs, and you're going to love them. We have great music videos happening. So, yes, again, come see us in Denver. It's going to be great, and I'll swing it to the next person. Oh, actually, real quick. I talked about this. This is
nice.
Well, sorry, I'm trying to get in life. Wolfman Kane, original one. There, I've nerded out. Now it's the next person's turn.
Great. I'm glad props have become a permanent part of my podcast. Robert Winfree.
You agreed to the move to video, Mark. You knew what was going to happen.
That's true. Robert Winfree, show us where you pissed from.
Alrighty. I got together with Mark and Pat last week, and we talked about one of the better boxing bouts of the year between Emmanuel Navarrete and Oscar Valdez. And if you want some other thoughts on that, in addition to the live ones, I talked a little bit about that on the 411 Ground and Pound podcast, which I host, talking about the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. This week was a review of a meh card and a preview of the pay-per-view coming your way.
I'm going to watch it this weekend. I'm going to watch the O'Malley fight.
Okay, good for you. And I have to apologize to people who listen to that show. In this one, I got one of the fights wrong. Half of one of the fights fell out. They announced the replacement very quickly, but you're just going to have to forgive me for confusing Jeff Neal and Neil Magny.
Okay.
Because, look, it was supposed to be Jeff Neal. That fell apart. Neil Magny stepped in, and it was still listed as happening, and my thought process immediately went to, oh, they haven't removed this from the listed bout order. That's not happening. My mistake.
Which one is the one that hosts movies that don't suck, and some that do?
Why are you picking on him? You like him. We've done good podcasts.
No,
with him.
I do like Neil. That's why I'm trying to give him a plug right now.
Okay.
So, but apart from that one
snafu,
there's a full preview of that upcoming events, UFC 292, on the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. So I talk about that. I talk about the UFC lawsuit, because that moved forward, and that will never not be funny to me. Because having been a fan of the UFC long enough, I saw them as the underdogs. I was there when they were the plucky underdogs, the foul-mouthed rebels who were legitimately put upon unfairly. Now they're the billion-dollar company squashing everyone, so I'm okay with them getting smacked upside the head with the proverbial 2x4.
Oh! All right. Are we done?
Let's see. I cover mixed martial arts and professional wrestling. So MLW stuff on Thursday, WWE SmackDown on Friday, UFC events on Saturday. Blue Beetle next week on Monday. Monday.
Da, 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 da. All right, folks. Nope. All right, for Dorian Price.
Last time you're going to get an upbeat podcast out of us for a month or so.
Yeah,
We're in
time.
We're in the trenches, man. We are just wading through it going forward.
All right.
We haven't heard Pat's pit where he pisses from yet.
He pisses when I tell him.
Yeah,
out the window.
Much. I'm on retainer, so
yeah, he pisses when I call him in to pee freely.
I don't do this any other type of way.
Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
All right.
He calls it in the ring and only in the ring.
Pat has been trying to get a podcast with Gavin off the ground for since the year of the flood, so I don't even bother anymore.
Neat.
All right.
Is that going to be the name of your podcast? Just neat.
Is it the best name for a podcast? No. Is it a good name for a podcast? I think it's good enough to make the argument that it could be.
Call it beef, like that character in Phantom of the Paradise that was all weird as shit.
As much as I could watch Pat do impressions of Gavin and everyone else for about another hour. For Pat Mullin, who pees where I tell him. For Dorian Bryce and Robert Winfree, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well. This has been Damn You Hollywood. Be well, be safe, and behave.